Hello and welcome to Songs for the Struggling Artist, the blogcast. This is episode 467. My name is Emily Rainbow Davis. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. Today's blog is about art. Woo! More art. Today's blog is about hating art. Sort of. So what do I have to tell you before I read it to you? If you're joining me here for the first time, hooray, hello, welcome. I'm just going to say maybe one other thing, and then I'm going to read you the blog, and then I'm going to sing you a song that's related to the blog, and that is how things roll. So this is called Evelyn Waugh Hated Picasso. As research, I started reading the letters between Evelyn Waugh and Nancy Mitford in the hopes of getting a sense of what a conversational tone of their era might be like. This correspondence begins right before Waugh's Brideshead Revisited and Mitford's Pursuit of Love came out. They're writing to one another at the height of their success. They're seemingly very comfortable with one another and on very even footing in a lot of ways. I was just reading along, not particularly struck by anything, just sorry I don't have a lot of paper correspondence with friends anymore. When these two started talking about Picasso, Waugh loathed him. Or his work. Or both. I can't tell. Turns out he wrote a piece in a newspaper about it. He could not stand him. And somehow I'm delighted by this. Here, in 2025, no one hates Picasso. He's so enshrined in the story of art now that only the most contrary iconoclasts would go so far as to hate him. I love that two of the most successful novelists of their era were talking about art in their letters. At first glance, I thought he and Mitford were in a mutual disadmiration society and that she hated Picasso as much as he did. But upon closer reading, she wasn't on board. She thought Picasso was kind of interesting. Waugh was clearly hoping to get some hate going regarding one of the most admired artists in contemporary history, but Mitford wasn't having it. Why do I love Waugh's hate? I find it freeing somehow. I think we imagine there was a consensus for good art in the olden days, that the cultural touchstones that we appreciate now were held in similar regard at the time. No one is sacred. I love this the same way I loved learning through reading her diaries that Dawn Powell hated both Fitzgerald and Hemingway. She hated them personally and was no particular fan of their work either. Of course, they are remembered, and she was forgotten, despite having been very popular at the time. The consensus art greats do tend to be the same sorts of dudes. This seems to happen particularly when women and other marginalized people are intentionally erased from history, as we're seeing now. Meanwhile, Picasso was so lionized, he has several museums entirely dedicated to his work. Waugh is probably thrashing around in his grave with fury. What if the artists that filled me with rage were treated like Picasso in the future? I would be so mad. Waugh called Picasso's show disgusting. He hated his paintings. And in a way, that kind of response is its own kind of compliment. Picasso really got under Waugh's skin. And it sounds like, even at the time, it was already a bit contrarian to go against the Picasso fan club. I like Waugh hating him more than anyone who loved him. But also, it doesn't hurt that Picasso was pretty awful to women. I'm very happy to have his balloon lose a little air somewhere, even if it is from 4 generations ago. It has so much energy in it, this kind of hate. When artists hate each other's work, it is its own kind of power station. I might start asking artists whose work they loathe from now on. It feels almost more illuminating than who we love. Before I read carefully enough and saw enough additional information, I really thought it was both Evelyn Waugh and Nancy Mitford that hated Picasso. And I loved that even more than just Waugh hating him. But because somehow when it was both of them, that's extra powerful, right? When you can really get into it about how much you hate some work of art or an artist, but in fact, I misunderstood. But I liked that reality better. The one where they both hated him was actually very cool, but not in fact the case. So I could not continue to live in that reality, even though I preferred it. So what song am I going to give to you? Well, I tried to find songs about Picasso, and just for, the heck of it, I thought maybe somebody wrote a song about Evelyn Waugh. And they did. What? So I found 2 songs about Pablo Picasso. One is by Paul McCartney, and I read a whole article about it where I may be getting the actor wrong, but I think it was Dustin Hoffman who asked Paul McCartney if he could just write a song out of, something slight. And Paul McCartney was like, no, I can't. And then Dustin Hoffman, I think it was Dustin Hoffman, gave him a quote from the newspaper, which were Pablo Picasso's last words before he died. And then, of course, Paul McCartney wrote a song about it. The other Picasso song is by the band Jonathan Richman is in. I think they're called Modern Lovers, I think so. And that song is about how no one called Pablo Picasso an asshole. And that tells me that Jonathan Richman did not, in fact, know anything about what people said about Pablo Picasso, because everyone called Pablo Picasso an asshole. So there was that song. And then I found a song called Evelyn Waugh by a band called Applicants. And so I was toying with all 3 of these songs for a little while. The Paul McCartney song was boring. I'm just going to, there's not much to it. It does feel like it was a challenge someone gave him and was just like, hey, why not this? And the Jonathan Richman song, I feel, is not, in fact, true about Pablo. It's more about him than it is about Picasso, of course. And then this Evelyn Waugh song was actually the most interesting to me, which is very funny. It's a punk band, apparently, and there's very little information about them on the internet. There is pretty much just a MySpace page. Their stuff is on Spotify, which is how I found it. But otherwise, almost absent on the internet. But I think, if I were them, I'd be pretty proud of myself for being more interesting than Paul McCartney. I mean, not everybody can say that. So you're going to hear this Evelyn Waugh song in a minute. So the Paul McCartney song basically goes, drink to me, drink to my health. You know I can't drink anymore, which was the end. Those were his last words, apparently. But then Paul McCartney just sings those lyrics and that melody pretty much for 3.5 minutes with a couple music breaks. So there it is. So this Evelyn Waugh song I decided to go with. Because it's virtually absent on the internet, I had to work out what the lyrics were, mostly by watching the video. The video was incredibly helpful in figuring out what those lyrics were. And I found the chords through a kind of, I guess it's AI. It's really giving me some thought. It's like food for thought, this system. But there's a thing where you can feed a video into this website and it will spit out the chords for you. So I had to do that on there. And so I don't know if these lyrics are correct. I figured them out, I think, but they might be entirely wrong. The other thing about this Evelyn Waugh song is that it taught me how to pronounce Evelyn Waugh. I would have said Evelyn. I was certainly saying Evelyn in my head up until I heard this song, and then I was like, oh, wait, did he pronounce his name Evelyn? Not Evelyn? What? So that I had to go check. I watched a couple videos. There's a video that was made by his great-great-grandson where it is clearly Evelyn. So it's Evelyn. But I guess we are running into a American-British difference there. It was shocking to me. So thank you to applicants for teaching me how to say the man's name and for their delightful song, which I will sing to you in just a moment. Meanwhile, thank you so much for listening. If you like this podcast, please tell someone about it. Like, review, subscribe, do all the stuff you can do for a podcast in your app or someone else's app. What the heck? And if you would like to support it with money, that would be so great. It's patreon.com/Emily R. Davis. There's also Ko-fi. There's PayPal. You can do a paid subscription on Substack. And if you know of a place that you like to support artists that I'm not on yet, let me know. I'll join. And mostly I thank you for listening. It is very meaningful to me that you are here listening. So thank you for that. And yeah, the lovely thing about this Evelyn Waugh song, I mean, it's a little bit about Evelyn Waugh, but it's also, I think it's just like about a guy with a crush on a librarian or someone who goes to the library. There's a lot of library love in this song, which you know I love. So there's that. And there's like, I think it's only one Evelyn Waugh book that they name check in the course of this song. And that book is Vile Bodies, which happens to be the only Evelyn Waugh book that I have read. So I enjoyed that sort of fun synchronicity of like, yeah, that's the one I got too. Although I did also watch many like mini-series and film adaptations of his work. So I do feel like I'm more familiar with his work than just that one novel. But in terms of actually reading the stuff, that's it for me too. So is there anything else about this song? I don't think so. One day it would be fun to like learn how to like really play in a punk style, but this turned into a folk song in my hands, of course. And I hope that you enjoy it. It is called Evelyn Waugh. I wish I were your slip-ons. I wish I were your feet. I'd make you come on over, 'cause you never notice me. I watched you walking home once to the library. I'd have told you how I felt, but your sign said quiet please. Oh, I've read Vile Bodies, and I want yours next to mine. I want to break the silence at the library closing time. Evelyn Waugh, Evelyn Waugh, I pretended you were my favorite author, just so that I could see you. Evelyn Waugh, Evelyn Waugh, I pretended you were my favorite author, just so that I could see you. Evelyn Waugh, Evelyn Waugh, I pretended you were my favorite author, just to see you some more. I wish I was your pencil. I wish I was your pen. I wish I was the hero you read about in chapter 10. I know I'm not the bookends you're dusting off the shelf. We're both like Evelyn, and we just can't get a grip of ourselves. Oh, I've read Vile Bodies, and I want yours next to mine. If you to bring return slip, then I'll pay your library fine. Evelyn Waugh, Evelyn Waugh, I pretended you were my favorite author, just so that I could see you. Evelyn Waugh, Evelyn Waugh, I pretended you were my favorite author, just so that I could see you. Evelyn Waugh, Evelyn Waugh, I pretended you were my favorite author, just to see you some more. Evelyn Waugh, Evelyn Waugh, I pretended you were my favorite author, just so that I could see you. Evelyn Waugh, Evelyn Waugh, I pretended you were my favorite author, just so that I could see you. Evelyn Waugh, Evelyn Waugh, I pretended you were my favorite author, just to see you some more.